Climate has been on the minds of many people. We've seen record-breaking heat waves here and around the world. Let's talk about the global climate crisis with a frequent guest of our show. He's a former congressman from the great state of South Carolina, now heads up Republic-EN. He is Bob Inglis, and he's up late with me here tonight on the Final Five, and it's always good to have you on the show, sir.
Great to be with you.
Oh, I promised you in the past when we've had you on, we've talked about everything other than something that has been your passion since leaving Congress. Let's talk about what we're seeing right now, because I do feel that the conversation has changed, where you have people on both sides of the aisle looking at climate as something more than just a partisan issue.
Yeah, I think that we are oddly getting to a good moment. You know, it's sort of, I mean, some people could say, "Heck, in the world can you say that?" With West Virginia versus EPA and the Supreme Court taking some of the tools off the table. But I think it's now back to where it should be, which is the Congress acting on climate. That's the necessity here. Because, this is a 30-year process of decarbonization we've got to be about. And so we've got to have bipartisan support, because we got to keep this up for 30 years.
We have seen some movement, and I think we've discussed this in the past, but it seems to be growing, the number of conservative members of the House who have signed on to various climate pieces of climate legislation, and this idea that it is something that you have to have people on both sides of the aisle come together. What stands out to you right now that are things that could get passed in a very divided government right now?
Well, I think the best indicator of Representative John Curtis of Utah has 73 members of a conservative climate solutions caucus. That's pretty amazing in the House to have that many members. And so, they're looking at various things that could be done, and that's really positive. They're entering this conversation, So it's basically the way that you can fix climate change. You can try to regulate emissions, you can incentivize clean energy, or you can price in the negative effects of burning fossil fuels. And so at republicen.org, we think that third one is the best way to go. And it definitely requires congressional action. So it's not so bad for us that we're back to the situation after the court has ruled, with the Congress having to act.
I'm curious what your take is on this pressure that many Democrats are putting on President Biden to declare a climate emergency, which would seem to be a preemptive action ahead of anything that Congress could get together and do. Would a climate emergency declaration actually do anything here?
I really don't think it'd help all that much. I mean, it really requires action by the U.S. Congress in order to get to a worldwide solution. America is the indispensable nation when it comes to climate change. And I think conservatives are the indispensable people in the indispensable nation in order to get in action on climate change. And so what we mostly need President Biden to do is reach out to those conservatives and say, listen, we are literally in this together. So what can we do together to solve climate change? And then if it becomes bipartisan, it's durable. It'll last as the pendulum swings and as administrations come and go. But a declaration of an emergency and then executive powers and moving a little bit of money around here and there, I don't think that's going to solve the challenge. The challenge is much bigger than that. And it really requires staying power. And the way to do that is to get bipartisan cooperation.
And to hear you eloquently speak about what needs to be done, you have a unique perspective, because you've been there in the Congress before. You've been one of the 435 voting members of the House of Representatives, and you can have these discussions with your colleagues. But when you look at those on the outside looking in, I look up at cable news and you'll see one graphic that insists that the Green New Deal is the end of civilization. You have another side that said Republicans hate the environment, and there's a lot of hyperbole that we've seen thrown around in the media here. There are meaningful discussions that can be had.
Yeah, there definitely are. what it takes is realizing that we're literally in it together. It's sort of like we're doing an experiment on our common home. We're all sitting in this petri dish. We got growth medium all around us, and we're picking up handfuls of it, and we're throwing it at each other, having a big old food fight. Meanwhile, there's somebody with a Bunsen burner is turning up, and we're in the petri dish. The heat's coming up. I mean, we are the ones that are being experimented on, and so we got to realize that hey, put down let's stop the food fight. Let's figure out a way to get the heat turned down here, and that's so at some point we're going to come together, and we got to get past the idea of, oh well, the other side, they're just bad. Don't you hate them more than you hate us? That doesn't work. Not when you're trying to fix something as big as climate change. But you got to remember this good news too. Climate change can be fixed. I mean, it's sure we've got some damage that's baked in, but unlike some other problems like healthcare, which has no perfect solution, climate change can actually be fixed. I mean, you can stop emitting this stuff. I mean, there's a way to do it. There's a way to transition to clean energy.
Bob Inglis, we always appreciate your perspective on this. RepublicEN.org for more information about what he's been doing to find solutions to climate change from a conservative perspective. Good to see you again, sir. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.
And the Final Five is back after this.